Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of AskDproS Business, where we bring entrepreneurs, professionals on the show, to share their journey and their business journey. On this particular episode, I got my man here, Jake. Jake is all the way from the States, all the way from the States, and Jake is here to share his journey and his story. And hopefully, that's going to impact, us positively, and Jake, on this show, we always start from the beginning, which means, telling us how the journey started for you. My brother, how did it start for you?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, I appreciate you having me on the show. We had a great pre-interview, so I've been looking forward to this for us being able to record. But I am Jack Brickhouse-EL. I am from the States. I grew up in a little town just outside of Chicago. For you guys who know a little bit about the state's geography, it's a little town called Gary, Indiana. If you think you may have heard of that, Michael Jackson, contingent upon who your demographic is, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 came from that town. That, of course, he was one of the biggest entertainers in the world. But the house they came from was very tiny, maybe about 1,300 square feet. And that's kind of the town that I grew up in. The only other thing my town was known for was steel production and steel manufacturing. It was huge in the early 1900s. So a lot of individuals in the States, a lot of the families in the South moved to the North to work there. And that's kind of how my lineage got there in that area. So Gary, Indiana, again, outside of Michael Jackson and steel, the third thing that you may have heard about it for is being the murder capital of the world. Unfortunately, my city had that title, and that stat, which I learned at a very early age, is broken down by the most murders per 100,000 people. All right, and there was only about 100,000 people in that city, at its peak. And so this is kind of my environment as a youth. This is kind of what I'm coming up in, and you have to learn to navigate all these hurdles, as we all do, coming from our different communities. It's no different. It just happens to be my hurdles.
Absolutely.
In my particular scenario. And so, when you come from this scenario, you have to, well, for me, I'll say personally, survival, kind of becomes the main focus of how do I just make it through the day to day as you are going through the process of trying to get the education and learn all of these things as you're growing up as a youth and then in middle school and high school. For me, I'm going through all of these challenges and hurdles and then going through, of course, just becoming a young adult, and then just trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life is kind of all impacted by this environment. So for me to kind of escape as when I was younger, I did a lot of reading. For instance, I think I was probably like 11 to 12 and I read Donald Trump's Art of the Deal. Right. And so that's at 12 years old. So I'm learning business this way. About the time of me going into being a young teenager, the hip hop mogul was born here in the States with the Puff Daddies and the Jay-Z's and Jermaine Dupri's and these guys in the industry who aren't just making music, but in their music, they're telling you about how you can do anything coming from, whatever neighborhood you come from. And then they're showing you all of these things that you can do. So now I'm looking around like, all right, well, there's no ceilings, but it's a lot easier said than done. Like, it's great that that they're dropping all of these tools, and I know they had to go through these hurdles, but I'm going through these hurdles now.
Okay.
Right. And but again, it's another part of inspiration. And then just looking in the family and just looking at the people who had went to college and just kind of how their lives turned out. So I'm looking early on and I realized, entrepreneurship is definitely the way I want to go. The other thing that unfortunately comes with murder capital of the world is you learn about the streets. Right. And so in my case, I learned a lot about the streets. But what I took from the streets is that organized crime is still a business. It's a corporation. It's just on the other side of the line as far as legality goes. So, watching these guys, again, I learned a lot about business on how a business operates and how a business is structured, how to treat employees and all these sorts of things. So as I was rounding out high school, I had a son at 17. All right. So now life is that much more challenging. And I have my daughter at 20, all while trying to go to the university for music business entrepreneurship at that time. And so I got through my first year, but then, everything just kind of imploded. I'm 20 years old, after 2 kids, coming from the environment I come from, trying to, figure out where I want to be as an adult. It just took a toll. But at 20, actually, right before my daughter was born, this is an important part of the story. I started my first business. Myself and a partner from high school, we started a aromatherapy business. And so again, taking those tools from the street guys that I learned, we took that to the aromatherapy game. And so we would go to the different salons and just the different neighborhood shops and make peace with or make friends with the owners and that would allow us to be able to sell our product there. And so once we're able to sell our product and scale up enough, we actually got a location. And that was the first time I had to file official paperwork for a business and learn about identification numbers and taxes and all these things. So we got that, and so that's 20. That was my first 20 years. I'll let you jump in, and then we can continue to go.
Oh my God, bro, man, that was such a lot to take in, man. A lot of things to take in, man. But we all that, you having your son at 17, your daughter at 20, all that hurdle to say, all that difficult phase of your life to say, how did you still have that mindset to say, just tell yourself, I want to still push this thing on, I want to go on, I want to push on it, I don't want to give up, how did you come around that?
Yeah, so for me, it was just, I didn't want to be a statistic of the environment that I, grown up in. And so, the odds were already against me, but then, with having the kids at a young age now, those odds are even more heavily against me. But I didn't want that, because I knew, what I was capable of. I knew I was just born in a certain place, and I had to deal with it into adulthood. But then as an adult, I have options now on what I want to do with my life and how I, the paths that I choose. And so what I understood was, I'm going to have to go against the grain. And you can edit this out. I don't know if you do profanity, but I said, this shit is going to be very, very hard. Right. And I know I have to do this. And so from there, it was just creating a strategic plan. And that's how I even tack business deals now, and everything that I do in life is, what is going to be the strategy? Well, the first strategy is, the business kind of took a dive. And so then I went into the transportation industry. I went and got a CDL. I was thinking about owning a truck. And so I went into that, and I drove semi-truck. From transportation game, I learned a lot about logistics. I learned how Fortune 500 companies move their products on the big scale. So I've seen it on the small scale in the community now with the local street guys. I've seen it, I've read it in books now, and now I'm watching it play out, and I'm actually a part of it. So I'm learning how air, truck, and train work together to make our products go from a warehouse, to our dinner table or to our homes. And so now I have a well-rounded picture of what's going on. So that kind of took me on a journey that taught me a lot about business. It taught me a lot about myself. I was still reading, business books. I still had the aspirations of obtaining the degrees and all these things. But I took that time to take what I could from that experience, because I was able to generate revenue and take care of the kids to kind of get them up. And so once they got to a certain age, they both kind of got into their teenage years. I said, all right, now I can go back to school. And so that was my motivation, was to do what I have to do now. And in the future, when there's an opportunity, you have to then come back around. And that's where some people quit. Some people make those pacts with themselves, but when the time comes around, it's hard to stay committed. But my commitment came from not wanting to be a statistic.
Yeah, cause Jack, man, it's hard when you have commitments. When you have you need to pay bills. You've got the kids. You got to look after the kids as well. You've got all sorts going on, family as well going on. But for you, the one thing I'm thinking from your story now is that you weren't willing to settle for the ordinary. You weren't willing to just settle down and say, it's life. Woe is me. I will just take it as it is, and I will just take whatever is given to me. But you were never there. You wanted more from life. You wanted more. Right. You wanted to put in more, and you wanted to get more as well.
Right.
But in terms of starting a business and have all that. I know over there in America is maybe you have to get your LLC straight. Have all that together. And also have the business name as well, because I've got people sending me messages like, okay, Kes, I want to start a business, how would I think about the name, think about the branding, strategy and all that, for you, I know you have the street game, and you also went into logistics as well, learned a lot from that, but how did you bring all this together?
Yeah. So for me, it's kind of, I use a 3-step process. A strategy. Once you have a strategy, you can develop a project plan. And then from that project plan, you can execute. All right. And then it's just kind of an evaluation process. So that's kind of the way that I attack everything. So for when I'm consulting new entrepreneurs, they come, right, and they have all these questions. Well, I need a name, and I need this, and I need that. And so regulations are different in different countries, and also here in the different states.
Absolutely.
Each state has different fees and different things that you have to accomplish before you can get your LLC. So, for instance, in the state of California, it's I want to say it's an $800 annual fee that you have to pay for maintenance of your LLC in the state of California. In the state of Arizona, you just pay a one-time fee of, I think it's $50, and then that's it. Unless you have a corporation. If you have a corporation, then you have to file an annual report. So the number one thing I say, and I ask the entrepreneur or the CEO is how much control do you want to have? How much control do you need to have? Are you just the creative mind? Are you the creative and business mind? And more so, are you the creative and business mind because you have to or because you want to be? All right, because most entrepreneurs get into a business and want to develop a business around their skill or whatever that may be. And so while you may be great and have the skills to execute, that product or that service, business is 90% of what you have to do. And if you don't understand business, then a lot of misinterpretation or lack of business knowledge is what tanks most new companies when they come, when someone tries to launch a new business. And so what I try to do is get the individual to understand either you need to come on with partners that can fill in the gaps on the things that you can't do, that you can trust. You need to have a budget where you can outsource these things and you can hire people to do the day-to-day that know what they're doing. Because if you try to do it in the beginning as yourself, you're going to get frustrated because you got to deliver the service or the product. Then you have to keep track of the money, right? If you have employees, you got to keep track of your human. And so now you're overextending yourself. You're setting yourself up for failure. But that's because there's no strategy, right? Individuals, hey, I got a company and I want to do the minimum steps, and then I want to say I have a business. Well, on paper, all businesses are only paper, right? You fill out these things, like you say, you create a name, and you do whatever inside of your territory is required. And so then from there, it's up to the individual to breathe life into the business. And that's any corporation. The biggest corporation you can think of now started with a piece of paper when someone incorporated it or founded it or filled out the articles of organization. And so as you go to things such as name and those are the surface level things. And so while a name is definitely important, the way I approach name is I have the individual dive deep into their organization. So it's if you want to sell candles per se, well, what makes your candle different than any of the thousands of other candles I can go to any store and purchase, right? So you have to be able to convey that to the consumer, and so you have to connect to the consumer. So just thinking of a catchy name is cool, but if it's not tied into what you're branding as whatever your business, whether that be service, product, whatever, it doesn't matter. Because if the name draws them and for whatever reason, and then they come and they see that your mission and your values don't align with your names, they're not going to purchase from you. And so as the entrepreneur, as the leader of the organization, you have to develop a mission and what the values are of the company and why are we in this, not just to make money. You have to have a mission and have a purpose behind what you're doing in order for people to really connect.
Yeah, and that goes that ties into personal branding as well, because you have to show the people that this is my product, this is me. You have to be the face, like you said, and that will probably invariably from your personal branding, and that goes to your business branding as well. But minutes ago you were talking about doing the accounting and all the paperwork and all that, but for you in your own business, what were the things that you did that weren't so fun for you? Because I know you probably have to do your accounting, you do your if you're doing your YouTube and stuff, you do your video, you also have to do the editing as well, but what part were you really a part of in building that business?
Yeah, so I am the orchestrator or the facilitator. So for me, so currently I have an operation. I have a nonprofit, a production company. I have an investments and holdings company. I have another production company that I'm partnered with another business associate on. And so what it comes down to is each business has to be able to sustain itself. So for me in the beginning, it's coming out and making partnerships. So what I'll do is, let's say I needed a CFO for one of my businesses to handle all the financial work. So I know a CFO who does independent contractor work. So we already have a relationship because we refer business to each other on a regular basis. And so then we just work out a deal. I say, well, you provide this for me and I provide this for you. Sometimes it's a monetary exchange. Sometimes it's just referral. And so I take the time to bring in and partner with people that that can do the things that I either don't want to do and they specialize in, or the things that I can't do and I don't know. And it's a process of scaling. And individuals want to scale a lot of times, think their business is going to scale a lot quicker than it is. You only can scale with what you have coming in and what you're creating. And so if you go, some people go and take out a business loan in the very beginning, in the initial stages. Well, that's great because you have, finances that you can operate on. But if as you start pulling from that loan or that line of credit and you're not able to replenish that, that's turning into debt on the company. And so it's much better to take the slow crawl and put as minimal amount of capital in the beginning as you can, enough to operate and prove that the business model can actually generate revenue. Right? Because if the business model, you can have $100,000 loan, but if you don't have a business model that can generate revenue, it's just you just took out $100,000 loan to have fun, is pretending you have a business, right? For 6 months, however long it's going to sustain. And so it's about putting in the groundwork. And so that's what I do with all my organizations. So I still sit at the top as either chairman or president of my organizations, and then all. I have assistants and other things that kind of work, because most of my business is family owned. I try to keep it in, and then friends I may partner with from time to time. And so that's kind of what we focus on, is just growing for our family internally and creating jobs for our family and friends internally is kind of the approach that we take. And so I'm involved in that day to day.
Yeah, good. But just to go back, but initially when you started, you were a part of the business in so many ways, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, and again, this comes with scaling. You don't have to do all these things at once. People want to come and launch a media campaign while at the same time still trying to structure their business. And, I need to do a pop-up shop or a video show. You don't have to do all of those things at once. So that's how I'm able to do these things. Again, I scale. I take the time and say, all right, for the first 30 days, these are the things we can get accomplished. And then in these next 30 days, these are the things we can get accomplished. And it'll be nice to have a shoot once the company can pay for the shoot. Jack's not paying for the shoot. All right, the company has to pay for the shoot. So once I put in the initial effort, then it's just a matter of maintaining the processes, building partnerships and relationships to be able to assist. Right. I mean, that's the key. Networking is the key to everything. You have to have relationships, whether you're in corporate or you're independent as an entrepreneur. And so that's what I spend my time doing, is building relationships and having a Rolodex so that I can lean on people when I need to lean on them. Yeah,
absolutely, Jack, man. You have to be a people's person, man. That's key. That's the number one key to succeeding in business. For me, you have to be able to reach out to people, shake so many hands, go into the room and shake so many hands, but like we are doing right now, you reached out to me, and now we are here talking on this podcast, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. I might need something, or you might need something, and you'll be the one, or I'll be the one to give you that thing,
That's right.
But starting a business, I know it's difficult. It's a very difficult, very difficult and lonely journey for entrepreneurs, But starting out for you, what were the initial, challenges you had starting out?
Oh, well, I mean, in the beginning, it's funding. In the beginning, it's all right. Well, and I'll say, even if you back up before that, the most challenging question is, how do I approach entrepreneurship? Some people think you have to go all in, right? Oh, I just got to quit my job and just go all in. Well, that can work if you have strategized and prepared for that. But the average person is not. The average person is working in whatever scenario they're in. And you're trying to make this decision saying, I want to go do something else, but how do I do it? And so that's the first decision is, all right, how can I play this game where in the beginning I'm still, working salary for whatever the scenario is. And then I'm going to make this transition to go and jump into this other space. And so the first company I started was my production company, but I was already working in production for a larger firm. And so that's something that's often left out in entrepreneurship, is that working the corporate game or for somebody else that's established is okay, because you get to go there and learn the game. You get to get connects that you get to take with you once you leave. And so now once you leave and you go start your firm or your company or whatever it is, you're not a new fish in the game. You can make phone calls. And so when you're able to make phone calls, then things move a little bit faster. So in my example, for me, being in the entertainment business, I had friends that I can connect with who knew about opportunities that don't get posted. So once I launched my production company, I call some of these friends and say, hey, what's going on in the industry? Hey, this show's here. Hey, these people are looking for something. Hey, these people are looking for something. And so that's kind of how I moved. in the beginning, for the production company. And so that was my plan to scale. And then from there is, we publish books and music and other things from there, but you can't do everything at once. So I didn't try to do everything at once. So all the companies I developed was because at the time I needed them. It wasn't a thing where I'm gonna develop 9 companies because I want to have 9 companies and take the time and go do all these things. It's a lot of work, right? And so as you start a business and you go through things, then you realize, all right, maybe I need to develop a company for this. So that's how my nonprofit came. So as I got more heavily involved into the community, I said, I want to be able to give back through my way and not have to, depend on a bigger organization. So that's when I started Brickhouse Cares, right? Our private foundation again. And then as we were moving forward, when we needed to get into some investments, then you start that business. But you don't just start businesses for the sake of starting businesses. Again, it's like having 7 kids and just thinking that it's going to be hands off. Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah, bro, man, it definitely doesn't work that way, But I see you're busy, man, and you're doing a lot of stuff, But for someone like you, what would you say motivates you? What makes you? What drives you? What makes you to do more and do better, man?
Just having the ability to share information and enlighten other people. That's it. So my rule is 1. So for as long as one person is touched by something, like just say for this interview, if one person is like, hey, I thought that was a great interview and I learned one thing, well, then it was positive. We all won, right? We
Absolutely.
took some time.
Yeah.
You know how hard in this climate it is to affect somebody with all the things that you're competing with, or with social media and television and life and all these things. So just being able to cut through one, because that one person is going to change something that's going to affect somebody else and somebody else. And so that's what drives me, is just, again, coming, as I set that up in our first few minutes, just coming from my environment, these opportunities aren't prevalent. Like, you don't even know if you're going to live past 20 years old or 21 years old. And so with me, going through all of these things and fortunately being able to find some sort of light on the other side, it's important for me to continue to move forward, but also still be in the community to show, hey, this is real. Like, I came from the exact place you did. This is just not a story that you're hearing. You're hearing the story and you may hear an interview, but then I'll come to your community and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna talk with you. And so that's what's important, is being able to connect with the people. So aside from all of my personal and professional experience, so I have degrees, bachelor and master's degree in organizational leadership, and schooling is just as important also. All right, you don't have to go all the way, but you want to get some type of, whether it's business certificates or you take a course or two, you need to understand business, because there are rules and regulations to this game that you need to understand. A lot of them are in your favor when you know the business and you know the laws. And so, taking the time to educate and learn those things. And so that's my message, is the things that most people don't like doing, I enlighten them. Hey, if you just read this and you read this and you take the time to read this about your law and your history, and then you learn these things, your entrepreneur journey will be a lot easier. And so for me, is outside of that, it's just all about the mental coaching. I focus on mental mindset, because you can go read all the books you want and go fill out all the paper you want, but if you're not ready to be an entrepreneur mentally and internally within yourself, is some of the questions you've been asking as you have to make these decisions, it's going to be a super rough road. And so those are the things I talk about. I talk about what it's like for real when you go launch a company and you're used to getting paid every 2 weeks, but now you're on a 30 or 60-day invoice. So yeah, you get the work, right? And the client is happy and everything, but you got to wait on their pay cycle. So yeah, whatever you were compensated is going to be nice when you get it. So now you have to make a shift, because now you were getting paid weekly or 2 weeks. Now it's 30 days. They may mail it out on the 30th day and you have to wait on the mail to get it to you, right? Or deposit. So all these things happen when you say, I want to be the boss. You have to deal with these things. And so these are the things that I talk about with clients, and say, well, how are you going to deal with it when your spouse is saying, hey, you're always working, but I don't see any money, right? What are you doing out there? Right?
Tell me about that, man.
Right. And so these are the conversations I have. So I take a personal and professional approach, because they go hand in hand. As I can't just coach you as an entrepreneur without knowing what your foundation is at home and the scenarios that you have, because those are going to heavily impact your career and your mind state as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. But you just mentioned education is key. Learning is also part of the game as well. But you hear a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners. They tell you, maybe they're college dropouts. They never went to college. They never went to school. But for you, how important is, learning and going to school and college and university, because you got a degree and masters as well, and
Yeah.
I know you're doing very well with that. But for those people that say it's not that important, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so and it's not for everybody. I never try to issue blanket statements, but it can definitely be a game changer. Again, that's whatever professional path you want to take. On the university level, on the junior college level, on whatever level, the marketplace is consistently changing. Trends are consistently changing. What's acceptable? Like now, 72% of decisions are value based, which means that the corporations aren't necessarily showing you about their discounts. They're showing you what they do in the community, because that's what people want. That's what people care about now. And so you, as a leader, have to understand the science behind this business, and the psychology behind consumerism and materialism and all these things. And so I guess the biggest separation is in at the university and college, or in that setting, you learn the theory of what's going on, and how and why things kind of operate in the marketplace. And then your personal experiences when you go do internships, or you work, or you start your own business. But it's a collective. And so if you go and you only have the personal experience, and you're competing against someone who has the personal experience and the education, you put yourself at a disadvantage. So again, you don't necessarily have to go and say, I need a master's or PhD and all of these other things. You just have to be willing to stay current in your industry, most importantly, and what's happening in the business field to stay relevant. And that's a continuing education process. So I'm always learning. Outside of the university, I'm reading books. I probably read 6 or 7 books a month, whether it be about business or about law, and sometimes just read biographies for inspiration of other individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. But what would you say, you know, when it comes to mentorship and entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
how does mentorship come into this equation?
Yeah, it's very important. So again, even in my status now, I have a mentor. My mentor is 78 years old, and so he's been around. He's done a lot of different things throughout his life. He became a business owner in the 1950s, and so here we are in 2021. He's still a business owner, so he has a lot of wisdom. I call him, that's my OG. So I call him, and he'll just give you advice sometimes and say, these are these things. And sometimes he'll call with opportunities, with him still being connected. And so mentorship is definitely important. There's not a standard mentorship scenario I would recommend. I would just say whatever works for the person. Sometimes it's just working with a partner and assisting somebody. That can be a mentorship. Sometimes it can be direct, where you actually schedule time, and somebody's gonna pour into you during these scheduled times. Sometimes you can have a series of people, which I'm always looking up to see who else I can connect with that can show me some things that I don't know. Again, because it's all about learning with me. And the end goal with the learning and the mentorship and all these things just circles back around to my ultimate goal of just spreading this information and then taking it to the nooks and crannies where it normally doesn't go. So I sit on a lot of committees, and so the people that sit around these boardroom tables with me on committees don't go to the neighborhoods that I can go into. All right. And so they'll send the message, but they're not going to take the message down there like I'll take the message. And so that's the importance of doing this. So again, it's just taking or showing that you can come from a neighborhood, as I was inspired by the hip hop guys. Right. So now it's my turn to do the things that I was inspired to do, or by these guys. Now I can be the inspirer and say, hey, I wrote these books. I did this. I did this. I did this. You can do these things as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Jake, man. Your journey has been a remarkable one, man. I love your story and how you've sort of like picked yourself, all the way from the streets, learned a few things,
Yeah.
logistics as well. You've grown your business. You're doing pretty good. But if you had to go back and change, same things, on how you started, your business journey, your life in general, what is that one thing that you would change?
Well, for business, I think everything was important, that the way that it happened for me in business, in order to be able to be as versatile as I am. Because without all those different experiences, then I'm kind of in a box, and I don't operate the way that I operate. So I don't think there's necessarily anything I would change business wise, because I mean, that my experiences and the resources I have helped me through a lot of scenarios. Personally, I would have taken up golf a lot earlier than I did.
What's so great? What's so great about golfing? Is it like it relaxes you, or you get to meet
It, it,
you get to meet
yeah,
people?
it's yeah, that basically that's what I got into it for, is just to, be able to have those conversations, executive level conversations. But the game itself, actually, I fell in love with, because although it's not relaxing when you actually care, it's very challenging. It's much harder than you think it is. For me, the game of golf is just like the game of life. Right, you come out and if you're not involved, you just kind of see it on TV and you see these guys out here on this with all this great water and this beautiful scenery. But when you're actually on the course, it's like when you start your business, right? So now you have a different view when you step to that first tee box. Now you see the water hazard. Now you see a house that if you hit this ball wrong, you're going to break somebody's window. Now you see this tree that's obstructing your view. It's no different. Oh, I want to make candles, or I want to start this driver service. And once you start it, now you have a completely different view. And whenever you press the green button, it says go, and you get out, it's the same thing as once you hit that first tee shot. Wherever the ball lands, now you have to play the ball from that spot with the overall goal of capturing the flag, right, or hitting the pin. It's the same thing in your entrepreneur career. You come out again, you make the first move, you open your doors, and then customers come in. And sometimes they flood your store, sometimes they don't. Sometimes nobody engages, and so now you're looking around. But you made a move, so now you have to hit the ball from where it is. And so now, as an entrepreneur, you're playing this game. And so, although it's hard enough that you're just trying to hit the ball straight, you also have all these hazards, just like you do in regular life. You have your spouse, you have your kids, you have your family, you have illness, you have all these things. But again, you have to hit the ball from wherever wherever it landed from your previous hit. So basically it goes back to, the better your old self can perform, you set your future self up for success. So if I hit a great initial shot, then my next shot is going to be pretty good, which then makes my next shot pretty good. But if I hit the first shot and it goes awry, how do I react? Do I get upset? Because if I get upset, it's just going to make it go worse, right? Just like in life. If you stub your toe in the morning, it just goes downhill if you stay upset. And so that's the game of golf that you go. And so now it's a challenge to go out there, because each course is different. It's designed by a different architect. The overall goal is the same, just like in business. Most people are in it to generate revenue or whatever it may be. But the obstacles are different, contingent upon the golf course or the industry that you choose to play on.
Yeah, Jake, absolutely, man. I think for entrepreneurs or business owners or people that want to get into business, I think for me, from what you just said now with this golf analogy, which is a very great one, is that you have to love every process of the business.
That's right. That's right.
And like you said, once you hit the golf, like once you start the business, no matter what comes along, you have to be able to at least withstand that pressure, and say, do you know what, I'm not going to give up, I'm still going to push on and carry on, which is great, taking a leaf from Kevin Hart, yeah. And I think he said something, I think in his book, saying that, life is like living life is like, we're writing our own stories, we're telling our stories, is your journey, your process, what is your journey going to look like, when all is done, for you, Jack, how is your journey going to look like, now I'm thinking about legacy, what is what is that thing that you want people to say, oh, do you know what, because of this guy, I did this, because of this guy, I was here, he helped me at this point of my career, what is that thing you want people to remember you for?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's very simple. Because of this guy, I continued learning throughout my life. I learned the importance of learning, of continued education, and how that helps the person as an individual evolve, which then helps each individual community. All right. So for a large scale change to happen, it starts on the smaller scales. Right. So if each community inside of a country controls their own community, and they say, all right, they have a leader, and everybody does what they need to do in the community, and say, all right, we're all going to be education based, or we're all going to do whatever it is this overall goal is, but everybody only worries about their own community. You can get a lot of stuff done, instead of community one saying, well, I'm not going to do it because I know community 3, 4, and 5 is not going to do it. You see what I'm saying? And so now a lot of times as entrepreneurs, you will wind up counting yourself out because you're looking around, and instead of making the decision and just worrying about what you control, you worry about the things that you can't control. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Good. But I think for me, it's just all about, giving value,
Yeah,
and helping the next guy cross to the other side,
that's
because
it.
I think for me, life, that's the way I see life, to be honest, because you can't just keep all that knowledge to yourself.
That's right.
You should be able to help others as well. People that are struggling, just help them, and just be that, have that empathy, that love as well, and give things out for free as well. Good.
That's
You know.
that's it.
Or
Absolutely, man.
yeah. It's all comes to meet you, and say, Jack, I'm struggling, I want to start this business, I want to do this, I want to do that, strategy wise, being
Yeah,
very strategic,
yeah,
what will be your advice to that person?
yeah. You go sit down and you do a self-assessment, and you say, where am I at? And so you do a personal assessment and say, well, where is my life? So you understand where you are there in your personal affairs. And then you say, where am I at in the process of being able to start this business? Because you have to know what you have before you can plan on where you're going. What tools do you have, right? It's like deciding to go camping, and you just pick up and go and get in your car and go, and just whatever you have in the trunk is what you have. All right. And so that may or may not work. Do you camp a lot? If you don't camp a lot, you probably don't have a tent. You probably don't have all these other things you need. But if you do, it may work in your favor. And so it's taking an assessment. How much have I been working in this business? How much work have I put into it? Did I get upset today at work and say I'm going to start the business today? So it's taking the time to just assess the reality of starting this business. And so from there, if that's a go, then it's planning out a business strategy. And so that's very simple. Is how much do I know about business? Oh, well, I don't really know a lot. Find a business consultant or a business coach or somebody with a business. Find a mentor. Taking the time to do that, assessing, well, what's actually going to be needed. For instance, I had a client who, against my advice, jumped into a lease agreement for a property for a business that they have. And because of the industry they were in, they didn't take the time to properly see what all the licensing and fees were going to be. Winded up spending like another $30,000 that they really didn't have because they didn't take the time to properly assess the scenario and go and take the time to dot the I's and cross the T's. And so the next thing is create a snapshot of, all right, I'm creating this business. When do I want this business to be up? And you can, again, you're the business owner. It can be 30 days, it can be 90 days, it can be a year from then. But it's all about assessing the scenario. And so then from there, you need to say, all right, realistically, what do I need to make to get this business open in 90 days? Can I do that? No. All right. Can I do it in 60 days? Can I do it in 90 days? So it's just those beginning steps are you being real with yourself about this business, because this business it sounds good and everybody wants to go on Instagram and say that I'm a business owner and I'm a boss and I'm a CEO and
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, right? And again, it sounds fun, but it's not. It's a pain. So I was doing some studying abroad in Belize with the Maya indigenous group, and they were talking about their election process on how they elect their new leaders. And so leaders there don't run for public office, right? To govern the indigenous people there. They're asked. So if you've been doing a lot of work and all these things that you and I have been talking about of giving and being involved in the tribe, the elders are going to come say, hey, it's your time. You need to lead the tribe. And you know what they say? No, I don't want to do this, right? The elders have to pretty much force them into doing it because true leadership is a burden.
It is.
All right.
And
it takes a lot out of you. So being at the top of the chain sounds good and it can be cool at certain times, but it never stops. You look at Jeff Bezos flew to space, right? And what happened when he got back? They criticized him. They said, you spent $28 million or whatever it was to go to space. And so now he came back. And although he donated a lot of money at the end of that space, a lot of people didn't talk about that. He donated a lot of money to some different initiatives. But those are the things you go through. All right. So now everything you do is public relations. And so it's a burden. So understanding and having those conversations of, do I want to go through what the leaders have to go through? See, if you work for somebody else, they worry about bringing in new accounts and bringing in and making sure that your paycheck is going to be there. You just worry about your paycheck is going to be there every week or every whatever it is, whatever the pay cycle is. But once you go the other way, now it's your headache to make sure that not only you eat, if you have employees, you got their livelihood is on you. They signed up to be with you and expecting you to deliver. So,
Yeah, absolutely, man. They all have to eat as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just a lot of work, a lot of overhead, right? All the overhead is then yours. Or if you have a space, you got to pay for the building, you got to pay for the electricity, for the lights. You got a water cooler, you got to pay for that. If you have snacks, right? All of these things cost. And so from a startup point, it's just keeping it simple. So I always say, I'll tell the clients, imagine you just got them, working out or whatever it is that you like to do to work up a sweat. You're hungry. You order your favorite pizza. I don't know, pepperoni or chicken or whatever it is, pesto chicken. You get down, you sit at the table and you're like, oh man, I just want to stuff this whole pizza in my mouth. But in reality, what happens? You can't do that. You can't eat the whole pizza. Well, so what do? You can eat the whole pizza, but you have to eat it slice by slice. And so that's how you have to approach journey. And that's part of strategy. That's my strategy. Is just take it slice by slice. So let's understand what the overall goal is, which is to eat this pizza. But it's going to take me 8 slices to get it done. Right. And so that's how you have to break down what it is that you need to do to start your business. So I know I have 12 things to do. All right. But I got to start somewhere. So let me just start with 1. And then after I complete that, then I can go to 2. And the next thing you know, you're halfway down the list. And now you're adding more things. And so you have to actually integrate yourself and live it. And I would say, don't be hasty. If you have a corporate job or a regular job, don't just walk off and leave that with no plan, because you're only going to be an entrepreneur a week or 2 when you understand the reality of there is no paycheck coming, right? Nobody's sending you anything. There are no unemployment benefits. It is you and only you. So you have to think through those things. So those are the things I like to talk about with clients.
Yeah, Jack, man. No one's giving you shit, man. That's
no
100, bro. 100. Yeah, but I like your strategy. Good strategy and your plans as well. But I know you've got a couple of books out. Do you have all these strategies in your book as well?
Yeah. So the first book, Cigarettes and Bad Decisions, the shit I wish I'd known. That's 2016. I co-wrote that with Hollow Tip and Coffee Black. Coffee Black is a good friend of mine. Hollow Tip is actually my wife, and so that's an interesting project, having a best friend and a wife, and we're all working together. That's good. But that is a self-development, self-help book. That's why we wrote that. And it's just kind of impart some of these things that we collectively learned as we went through life, just from 3 different perspectives. So let's just say the first chapter in that book is crabs in the barrel. And so we collectively talk about when you try to make the transition from wherever you came from into a new, let's just call it level up. When you decide to level up to the next level, and the resistance that you get from people that are close to you, and how you thought they would be supportive, but they're trying to bring you back down. They don't want to see you, quote unquote, escape from the barrel. And so we just kind of share some of our stories and talk about lessons for crabs in the barrel. We have another chapter, pursue happiness and the money will come. All right. And so again, that just encourages you, pursue whatever it is that you want to do. You can make money doing everything. All right. I have this example I use where there was this gentleman who apparently was into medieval weaponry, right? And actually, I want to say I think he was in the UK, and he had a salon where he would do the women's hair, but he was using like blow torches and these medieval knives and all of these things. He was booked out. But you think if you ask the average woman, hey, would you let this guy use a blow torch on your hair? They're going to say no. Hell no, I'm not going to do that. But this guy created a whole business out of that, right? Where he's upcharging. So you can create revenue doing whatever you want to do. You just have to put the time into it and take the time to learn, educate yourself, figure out the market, and then figure out where your place is in the market, what's not being serviced. And so we talk about a lot of those. We talk about how making sure your shortcuts are actually shortcuts is very important, because everybody wants to take the short route. But then once you find out your shortcut is not short and you have to double back, did you really have a shortcut? And so it's taking the time to not always find the easy road. And so these are the things, that Cigarettes and Bad Decisions, that's available on Amazon and any bookstore. If they don't have it, they can definitely get it for you. And then on the September 11th, I just released a fiction book. So I wanted to go in a different direction. This is solo for me. I was not a big fiction reader, but I didn't want to get boxed in as just a self-help, self-development writer. And so I worked on this for about 5 years. So this book is called Blind Drift, something like a screenplay. And I wrote it in screenplay form. I hate the standard form where everything is described out. So I took a little different approach, but the overall story, there's 4 acts. You follow a gentleman, Chad Powers, through his life. He used to be a college athlete, played basketball, wanted to go to the NBA, couldn't go that route, but he did finally make it into the NBA. He's an NBA official. And so you're going to follow him through his life and look at basketball from a little different perspective, because, you know, every time somebody writes is about the star player, the star player, the star player, the star player. So I wanted to give somebody else who's always on camera, but it is kind of overlooked, you know, kind of give them shine in that book. And so each act kind of spins off. There's new characters introduced each way. And so that's Blind Drift, something like a screenplay. And then there's also a soundtrack that I released for that, an instrumental soundtrack. That was my second album. And that's available Apple, Spotify, all those things.
That's great, brother, man. Your hands are full, man. Your hands are full, man. You know, you're doing a lot, you know. And going back to what you said about, you know, doing something different, you know, and you want to try and create your own niche as well, you know. For you, you know, as a businessman and as an entrepreneur, you know, what sets you different? What sets you up?
Man. Is that I'm able to go. I'm one of the few people that can go from the boardroom to being a boot on the ground and have the conversations that bridge those two. We'll call them communities, for lack of a better word. There's a huge disconnect there, and so that's why I feel all my experiences made me or allowed me to have the swag to walk on both sides of the line and be respected on both sides, to be able to bridge those lines of communication.
I love the show. Love the way it's going, your storytelling, you know, and your life journey as well. You know, if you want to leave someone with something, you know, on this show and said, you know, I listened to Jack on this show, you know, Ask the Pros, you know, business, and he said this, you know, what would that thing be?
Two things. Preparation is the separation. That is my personal quote. And again, if you're always prepared and continually preparing for what it is you say you want, when the opportunity comes, you'll be ready. So if you say, I'm ready to start that business, and opportunities are coming that are leading you that way, and you're taking them, and you're taking the time to read and educate yourself and look at spaces and do all of these things, and you're prepared, the opportunity will arrive. You work yourself into opportunities. It's not necessarily luck. There is a small portion of luck, but a bigger portion of that is working yourself to even be in the opportunity to get lucky. And that goes as preparation as the separation. And the other thing is just to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because all this life is uncomfortable. All this business is uncomfortable. People equate success. They'll say, well, if I had a $50 million company, it'll be okay. Oh no, the problems just get bigger, right? The bigger the company, the more people you have to deal with, the more personalities, the more people who now see you as value, who want to sue you. That's the thing that entrepreneurs don't talk about, is lawsuits. That's another thing that will definitely come your way the more successful that you come, or that you become. So just being comfortable, being uncomfortable is the key. And just understanding there's value in everything. There's value in the positive, and there's value in the negative, right? So I'll call it positive plus negative equals success, all right? Because you need both in order to be able to move forward through life.
Absolutely, man. I love that. Absolutely. Love that. If guys want to get in touch with you, Jack, you know, where is the best place for them to hit you up?
Just MrJackBrickhouse.org, all one word. And you can find the book there. You can find podcasts, interviews. You know, if I'm doing anything, if you want to book me, or if you want to have a consulting call, all those good things is there. And then social media, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and then LinkedIn. Those are where I'm most active. So it's just search Mr. Jack Brickhouse. You'll find me. I'm there. DM me. I would love to talk to you.
Yeah, brother, man, it's been wonderful, man. It's been a nice time. You know, I had fun on the show. You know, learned a lot of things from you. You know, and I'll keep learning from you anyway, because I've got your contacts now. So I would definitely reach out to you. You know, and I want to thank you. You know, 100. You know, for making your time to come on the show. You know, I really appreciate it. You know, and I'm grateful as well, bro.
Absolutely, I appreciate you sharing your listeners with me, man. I appreciate you all day long.
Nice one, bro, man.